Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, this is the Black Iye Podcast, and I am your host, Michelle. Well, I had a thought. As a feminist, I cannot vote for Kamala Harris. When I first heard that she was crowned or ordained to be uh, a running mate or run for president to be whatever she's going to be, I was surprised. I was stunned. There was nothing about her that the truth of the matter is, I don't see her as commander in chief. I don't see her sitting at the table with Putin. I don't see her sitting at the table with the Chinese leader, whose name I cannot pronounce at the moment for some weird reason. But I don't see her as having command of the issues that plague the American people. Listen to this.
Fix this problem with inflation?
All right, thank you. Well, let's start with this. Prices have gone up, and families and individuals are dealing with the realities of that bread costs more, that gas costs more. And we have to understand what that means. That's about the cost of living going up. That's about having to stress resources. That's about a source of stress for families that is not only economic, but is on a daily level, something that is a heavy weight to carry. So it is something that we take very seriously, very seriously. And we know from the history of this issue in the United States that when you see these prices go up, it has a direct impact on the quality of life for all people in our country. So it's a big issue. And
Yeah. So she takes it very seriously. She uh she takes it very seriously. That's amazing. She has no idea how this country runs. And I'm stunned and shocked by black Americans, especially black women, who have busted their asses. And I say that with my chest. I've watched black women bust their asses, forgive my language, to get to where they are, to go to school, to better themselves. I briefly worked in a place called Career Quest, where people, when it was the reform of welfare, we were helping people transition from welfare to work, and how black women were tenaciously going to school, tenaciously taking care of their families, acquiring transportation, working hard to become the most educated class in the world. And excuse me, in the United States. Well, yeah, practically the world. We are educated. And yet we fall for this woman who doesn't appear to even try to know anything about the country that you live in, the country that you are vice president of. I'm sorry, but I believe in women running for president. I believe that there are capable women out there. I believe that there are prepared women. I believe there are tough women. I think here in the United States, we have some women with iron in their spine, but this woman is not it. And in all consciousness, I cannot vote for her. I cannot rally around her. I cannot see that because that's not our best foot forward. And now she wants to align herself with black women. To me, that's not our best foot. Black women don't hold to these values. You better not come non prepared on any place where a black woman is. You better not. And yet we're willing to accept her as our president. What kind of word salad is she or speak into international leaders? How is she going to be commander in chief? Does she even comprehend what that means? Who she is commander of? The armed forces? Does she know what she has to command them to do and not do? This is a travesty. I don't want to hear no mess about Project 2025 because everybody knows, especially all of us old heads, that that's the biggest hoax that's been put on to scare women into voting Democrats. These people, whoever they are, I forgot who they are now, the Heritage Foundation, have had these same tenets for years, all the way since Ronald Reagan. They were angry with Reagan because Reagan or one of those presidents refused to um, gut the Department of Education. They were angry with another Bush for not doing something. I mean, these people have had these tenets for decades. Decades. There is nothing new in what they have put forward. Some of the stuff is crazy as hell. It's always been crazy as hell. But Project 2025 is a thing put forth to scare you. As I was talking to someone one night when I went live, and I said, do you know what you have to do in order to push these things forward, to push these tenets forward? Do you know what you have to do? This is a scare tactic. Nothing new. Been here before. They every year they come out, every presidential cycle they come out with their little this is what we want, no fault divorce, we want to take care of the family, all of that good stuff. They never changed. And yet they perpetrated, and I say they, the Democrats, have perpetrated this hoax on women because now women believe that if Trump comes in, Project 2025 is going to be implemented. I don't think he has time to do that. Now, this is not about me being a Republican or a Democrat. Just so we're clear, I'm an independent. I dislike both parties. I think that Democrats use the Republicans to say all the things that they can't, and the Republicans use the Democrats to do all the things that they can't. And they both serve the same masters. Corporate. Not us. So I have no love for either one of them. But I will not be sold a bill of goods regarding black women with this woman who decides now that she wants to be a black woman. Not that I care. And I wouldn't have cared. But she just displayed how disingenuous she was and is, how fake she is, how non-prepared she is, how unqualified she is. Because why can't she just take who she is? Who she claimed to be. See, when she was ascending into government, she was Indian, the first Indian. Now she wants to be black. Why? Because when she messes up, you get to blame black women for it? I don't care, again, about all of this. But the more I see her and the more I hear her, the more I realize that this is a no. And anybody who will go with her because we don't want to be on the wrong side of history, honey, this isn't history. This is a disaster. And let me go back to the Project 2025 thing that the Dems are trying to scare you with, this scare tactic. Let me go back to that. How can they say with a straight face that they are defending democracy when they undemocratically replaced a presidential candidate. That's what I'm talking about. Neither one of them are your friends. Neither one of them give a damn about democracy. And just to be clear, we do not live in a democracy. We live in a republic. We practice democracy. But I can't understand how anyone could look at Kamala Harris and think to yourself, yes, this is a qualified woman for president. I just don't see it. And as a feminist, and I'm a proud feminist, I don't want to see some superfluous woman, with superficial charm. I want to see someone who has command of the issues. Let me talk about something else for a bit. 2 things I observed about Kamala. One, well, everyone talks about that one, the border crisis. And number 2, the big one, when when it was announced that she was president. Let me tell you something. She had the opportunity to look presidential. She should have met with Netanyahu. She should have met with him. She should have taken the opportunity to look as if she has command of the issues. You don't have to agree with him. Barack Obama complained about how he couldn't stand Netanyahu for years. The 2 men never got along. But Obama understood that there were treaties and agreements there that he could not terminate, change, or, he couldn't change. I forgot the word I was going to use, but he couldn't change those things. And so he had to deal with Israel. He had to deal with Netanyahu. He had to meet with him. You don't get to be influencer in chief. You don't get to decide, I will not be meeting with this person. No, you commander-in-chief should have met with him. And see, it's all about those optics. It's all about knowing what to do and when to do it. Understanding the world in which you live in and navigating it accordingly. I'm sorry, but she can't do that. She simply doesn't have the right.
So what's your message to other countries that may think that
Thank you very much. Thank
their custody, unlawfully detaining them, would be a good way to get something they want from us?
Hey, look, that's been the case for all of history. My job is to make sure that, number one, they don't get them. And if they do, we get them back. I don't buy this idea that you're gonna let these people rot in jail because other people may be captured. We will set out all the notifications to all the other countries, all our citizens, what countries not to go to, what to do, what not to do, and they got to pay attention. I got more work to do. So.
Madam Vice President, how do you feel?
This is an extraordinary day, and I'm very thankful for our president and what he has done over his entire career, but in particular as it relates to these families and these individuals, what he has been able to do to bring the allies together on many issues, but in particular this one. This is just an extraordinary testament to the importance of having a president who understands the power of diplomacy and understands the strength that rest in understanding the significance of diplomacy and strengthening alliances. It's an incredible day. You can see it in the families, in their eyes, and in their cries.
When did you know you got the deal done?
A while ago.
Poor Joe. He's confused. He doesn't even know what's being said. He really doesn't. I think he thought he understood, but I don't think he understood. It's so sad. It's so sad. Anywho, I started to think about her in a different light. Like really coming to terms with her and her career path. And on paper, she looks great. You know, she was a DA and then she was the Attorney General. And then I began to think about her as a lawyer. And I thought, well, you know, lawyers um they don't lose their voice. You know what I mean? They're not at a loss for words. You know what I'm saying? They're great orators. They have to convince the judge and they have to convince the jury. They have to come up and they have to be very persuasive. So they're wordsmiths, most of them. I haven't met a lawyer who was ever at a loss for words. See, I'm not an orator. I do have a lot of thoughts and things like that, but I am not an orator. I admire people who can smoothly discuss their thoughts and bring them forward. I've been used to, you know, being ignored my whole life. So this is me coming out, trying to express myself as the best way possible. But my goodness, my goodness, my goodness, this woman is at a loss. And it makes me think that maybe, just maybe, Judge Joe Brown, let me just find that video real quick, is correct when he talks about her career. Because there's no way in the world she was Attorney General and, you know, she did well in the courtroom. There was no way she was, you know, a senator and she didn't do well in the courtroom. I just don't understand, um, you know, how she came to be here doing all the things that she's done, other than she just fell upwards. That's all I can think of. And Judge Joe Brown, and I've been thinking.
But I gotta ask you about Kamala Harris. How you feel about her?
She's a piece of shit. I was in California. She lacked professional competence, and she worked on it by hiking up her hemline when she needed influence rather than researching. I was out in California for 15 years doing my show when she was at her peak, and she had a reputation amongst the trial lawyers of being lazy. She just hike her skirt up and try to flirt, and she wasn't that good in the courtroom, if not pretty bad in the courtroom. So I'm not surprised at what she does. She's 60 years old, and I think listening to her word salad and the way she talks, I think she's got early onset dementia and also some problems with menopausal complications. That's that, you see, today is going to be tomorrow. So since it's going to be tomorrow, today we have tomorrow, which is why we are now. Like, what did you say? They have something in mind, but they cannot cognate getting all the way through it, which is why she's famous for this word salad garbage, and she doesn't make a bit of sense. I think since she's only 60, she's actually on a worse track than Biden was. Biden is 20-some years older than her, and he has been senile for a long time. Now, about 5 or 6 years ago, when did they start ramping up to do this? 2019. Okay, I was saying Biden has been a failure his whole adult career, a second-rate, third-string player. He's in the game, so he wants to make a name for himself.
He ran for president 3 times, and each time was a colossal failure. My whole assessment about Joe Biden was that he saw himself in Kamala Harris. His previous runs for president were not too dissimilar from her. They are very much the same person. If you ever go back in time and you watch Biden, you will see a lot of Kamala there. Joe Biden lied about his college. What did he do? He what's the word I'm looking for? Where he copied somebody's speech. He actually stole somebody's speech. They caught him in it. What else did he do? His brother was caught doing the same thing that his son was doing. I mean, the man was just a colossal failure in politics. And each time he ran for president, it was very not too dissimilar for what happened with Kamala Harris. Not too dissimilar at all. I figure he saw himself in her. That's why I don't think it's fair they call her DEI. I don't think it's fair. Because I think it was much more, I think it was much deeper than that. Yeah, I think it was. Anywho, that was just something I wanted to get off my chest regarding Joe Biden. You know, they took advantage of young people not knowing his record. And they knew, I strongly believe that they knew he had cognitive issues back in 2020, and that's why they left his butt in the basement. And they're trying to pull the same kind of thing with Kamala. They don't want her to come out talking because it's the same thing as with Biden. You know, when Biden would come out and make these speeches, he would make these strange speeches about kids running up on his legs and weird behind stuff, and everybody ignored it. I couldn't believe that they would allow the media would ignore it and not pay attention to it. Because if anybody else would said the weird things he said, they would be ridiculed into oblivion. And yet, it was just a mass media ignore. So, they've been lying to us about Biden's cognitive abilities for a long, long time. For a long time. And I think they're trying to pull the same thing with Kamala. They're trying to keep her out of the spotlight as much as possible. They don't have the pandemic now, but they got to find other ways. So they're going to continue to play the race card and the persecution card to keep her out of the spotlight. But I digress. Let's go.
I considered him for years poor urban trailer park trash. And he's a crook.
He always has.
He's a third stringer.
He always has.
Now, what I said he was going to do is he probably wants to claim fame for being the first person to see to it that a woman got to be president. And what I predicted, I'm slightly wrong on it, was that he was going to get in, try to get elected, and if he got one term, try to get elected for a second one. And then halfway through his term, when he had served 2 years, to retire or resign in her favor. So under the 22nd Amendment, what happens is she can serve for the final 2 years for somebody and then be elected twice more. So that woman would be able to serve 10 years, second only to Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who got elected to 4 terms before they put the amendment in place so you couldn't. Now, that said, I think, and my major at UCLA was political science, my analysis was is they picked the weakest somebody they could as a figurehead, somebody who had some apparent minority status, which she does not. And what goes on is that you get her, everybody that is everybody would be afraid to go against her because of what she can pass herself off as. And then you get somebody that's easy to control because she's lazy, because she is becoming incoherent. Now, the problem is that'll get somebody to a certain level quickly, but you can't get past that level if you don't have competence and talent. So my thing about it is if I'm crude about it, in this city years ago, I used to represent a whole bunch of pimps and hoes, and I know a hoe when I see one. And I say this, I don't care, women, you do what you want to do if you want to have recreational sex, but when you do the casting couch or anything else for professional purposes to get paid or advance, you a hoe. And she's old hoe. And the problem is what is she supposed to do? Somebody, one of her sycophant slaves comes up and unwraps her in a carpet naked at Putin's feet, and he says, oh, yeah, I'm Julius Caesar. He said, no, I got better stuff here already. Plus, I don't want you anyway, you old woman. Get on up, you know.
Right.
Or Xi Jinping, is he supposed to be impressed? She's doing word salad. Well, we're here today because China and the U.S. are here today, and that's why we have to agree on what we're doing here today. Like, fool, what did you just say? You know, did you say anything? And I've never seen such a salacious mess as I've seen out of her. I think a One West Bank. I had some pretty good properties out in California at one point in time. And I know I had 3 neighbors who had good properties. It was in a place called Ojai, California. And they got caught up about 15, 16 years ago, like a lot of people did in that mortgage bundling scam stuff that was going on. And there was a bank called One West Bank responsible for it, which was owned by George Soros. The Mnuchin that you have out of the Obama administration was Mnuchin, who was the CEO of One West Bank. Well, there were approximately 1,200 counts of indictments returned against Mnuchin and One West Bank in various counties in California. Well, Mnuchin and Soros financed and arranged and sponsored Kamala to run for Attorney General of California. They got her elected. She got in, and using the authority she had, she promptly consolidated all 5,200 counts and dismissed them in a couple of weeks for $4.2 billion. So after that, they got together and got her finance and got everything organized and made the connections for her, and she got elected to U.S. Senator. Willie Brown made the initial contacts and arrangements so she could get elected as district attorney for San Francisco. She didn't do a very good job. She had a reputation for giving out the stiffest sentences in the United States of America for simple possession of marijuana in San Francisco, for God's sakes. But it was only to young black men. She's not a parent, never had any children, but she went off on this campaign to lock parents up, some of whom actually were shown to have dropped their children off at the school, but they played hooky, so she was putting them in jail. I know my in-laws, now late in-laws, because they're dead, and their fine daughter that I was married to, we were divorced. She got a whole lot of money, but anyway, out of me. What wound up happening was there was a liquor store they like to patronize on the way home, and it was a good liquor store, but it got held up a lot, so Kamala's solution was not go get the crooks, but close down the liquor store so nobody would see that kind of philosophy. Or you've got a serial killer who's got 6 victims, and the families are writing protest letters to her, not hurry up and do something, not why are you giving the guy such a light deal, is why don't you let this man plead guilty to life without parole instead of delaying it for 7 years, trying to make political hay out of it. I was caught up in a thing where this woman who was supposed to be a financial specialist wound up embezzling a lot, $1.5 million from me, about 15 million from some other black celebrities. And most of it was in the San Francisco area, not LA where I was. She consolidated the cases up there in San Francisco, took 5 years to resolve it, let her plead out not the $15 million of embezzlement, but $35,000. The sentence was 5 years in the penitentiary, 4.5 years suspended, 5 years probation. The woman wound up sitting on a bench outside Sybil Branch, which is the women's detention facility in LA County, for 5.5 hours. That's all the time she served, made no restitution. And la-di-da, I'm through with it now. I don't care on her behalf. Like, where's our money? You know, what did you do here? You didn't even consult with us. You did this on a surprise basis. That's $15 million gone. What happened? It's the kind of thing she would do, see. So it's like, that was not a good professional performance. And then she was everybody's favorite Hindu Indian prosecutor and attorney general and senator, and now she becomes black. But, you know, I met her daddy, fine gentleman, Professor Harris. And the problem with her being black is Professor Harris says he's Caucasian, mixed Irish and Hindu. He doesn't have any black ancestors, but his Irish ancestors owned a lot of slaves in Jamaica and had them to work on plantation. So if mama is on the birth certificate listed as a Caucasian, daddy says he's a Caucasian Hindu and has no black ancestors, how did she get to be black? Now, a little side story. When I had my show, let's say this has been 26 years ago, I had two beautiful women that I thought were sisters on the show. And they laughed one time when we all went to a happy hour and said, "You think we're black, don't you?" "Yeah, aren't you?" "No, we're Hindu." One of them said, "My mother's a Hindu Brahmin caste, and my father was Hindu warrior caste. He took an oath to the family to protect her. They fell in love, eloped, and now we got a death warrant on us. We can't go back to India." So, yeah, and then they gave me 2 books. The guys were Hindu, and they were very dark, but they cut their hair off close, grew beards, and started dressing and acting black, and they got financial aid. One of them, I think, went through medical school that way, masquerading for being black. Somebody else did it, so she went to Howard. And by the way, she told one big lie when she was talking about she got bust because of something Biden did when she was running against him. Well, the yearbook that she put out there that you can still get online from her high school in Canada shows she went from kindergarten through 12th grade in Canada, never went to school in the United States of America. She was born, by the way, in the same hospital that my ex-wife was born in, the same 12-month period, and my late mother-in-law was, in fact, a pediatric nurse in that hospital when Kamala was born. And the birth certificate that she has is interesting because the confusion comes from a mistake. On the birth certificate, it lists the mother's race as Caucasian, national origin India, and religion Hindu. For the father, it does not list national origin. It does not list religion. It does not list anything about that, but where it says race, they put national origin in, Jamaica, by mistake. Now, if you've ever been to Jamaica.
Now, I have to stop this because I had a great laugh. George Stephanopoulos was arguing, and let me see if I can find that video, with a black man over Trump, Donald Trump's asking whether or not, well, Donald Trump said he didn't know that Kamala was black. He didn't know. And he said suddenly she became black. So George Stephanopoulos, let me see if I can find it. It cracked me up, right? George Stephanopoulos said that, well, he was accusing the black man of using a slur. That's what he was accusing the black man. It's a slur to question Kamala's, her ethnicity, her race, right? And he said her mother is Indian and her father is Jamaican. I burst out laughing because Jamaica is a place, not a race. And I thought about this, how the DNC, how liberals are incidentally racist. Because his whole idea, his whole outrage, George Stephanopoulos' outrage, was about Kamala's race. But it had nothing to do with her race. It had to do, Jamaica is not a race. Being Jamaican is not a race. White people live in Jamaica. Asian people live in Jamaica. One of the most interesting things I came across working in the casino industry was a white person with a Jamaican accent. That floored me. You know, because when you grow up, you only think of Jamaicans as being black people. You don't know that Jamaica is a place. It's a British, under the British rule. So I just thought it was the funniest thing. I burst out laughing. I got to find that video. I have got to find that video. You probably saw it already. But it was the funniest thing I had ever seen. He said that she was Jamaican. And he meant that with his whole behind. He meant that. And he was outraged. George Stephanopoulos was outraged with the black man for not being outraged about what Donald Trump said. It's just the funniest thing. It's hilarious. Yeah, they're incidentally black, like they're incidentally racist, and they really believe themselves to be not racist. So it's sort of like going to run away from it, but or and they're so busy trying to be, with the stick up there, that they just did. I had it queued up here. I thing I had ever seen in my life. It was just funny. Just the video though. Honest to God. Honest to God. Let me see. I'm gonna give myself a little more time. I had it queued up here because like I said, I was laughing my ass off because it's like Africa. It used to be white people would talk about Africa as if Africa was a country. Africa is not a country. Africa is a continent. And they really would talk about Africa in this broad type of way, as if it were a country. They didn't ask you what part of Africa are you from or what country are you from. They would just talk broadly about Africa. Let me see. It was here. Let me see if I can find it. She's from and her father is Jamaican. And it's like, okay, but her father, that doesn't mean he's black. It just means that he is a Jamaican. He's from Jamaica. Is this it? Oh, how come they're not giving me the video? Oh, here it is. This is the video. I'm sorry about that, y'all. I had it all queued up. I just thought it was the funniest thing I'd ever seen in my life. Of a slur. The slur, he says. You're using the slur. You're questioning her identity. Okay. Here it is. Look at his little outraged face. He looks like a little squirrel. He's so outraged. Look at this. Oh, let me turn this sound up.
Thank you for joining us this morning. Why is former President Trump questioning the vice president's racial identity?
To see, I don't really care. Most people to the United States Senate. It was AP that said she was the first in.
Now my internet is
Indian American United States Senator. It was actually played up a lot when she came into the Senate. Now she's running nationally, obviously.
Now, I don't know why it's getting stuck. Come on now. Anywho, let's see if we can move it up a little bit. I do hate this app sometimes. It does me no good. My internet be internet, and anyways, I'll try to. Oh, now it's going to start.
Of the United States, a job, I will add, which has been a failure for the American people. I know you guys like to glom on to this that he talks about in jest or in a serious manner. For about a minute or so, but what you do not cover is the litany of failures of Kamala Harris. That's what you're not covering, George.
So questioning somebody's racial identity for a couple minutes is okay?
George, I'm going to tell you again, he brought it up. AP is the one that wrote the headline when she first came in to the United States Senate. Didn't talk about her being black, talked about her being the first Indian American senator. AP brought that up. I mean, George, we could have this conversation for the entire segment, but none of this matters to the American people. Of the Biden-Harris administration that has been destructive of the American people, or are we going to have the policies of the Trump administration, which put America first, had low inflation, prosperous Americans, no matter your race, no matter your color, no matter your creed, and a foreign policy that kept America safe? Those are the facts that truly matter, because this issue is going to come and go. The lives of the American people is what's going to remain, and that's what matters more than anything else.
If it doesn't matter, I don't understand why you keep on repeating it, why the president keeps on repeating it, why those introducing the president yesterday
George,
keep on
actually,
repeating
I'm not
it.
the one who keeps repeating it. George, you're the one that's bringing it up now. That's
You've done it,
I understand why
sir.
you
You've done it.
up.
You've done it
Because,
3 times. Every single answer you gave me. Now let me finish, sir.
George,
Every single answer you
asked
gave, you
me-
repeated
you
the slur.
asked me, George. That's why I'm pushing back on you now. George, you
Right,
asked
and-
me the question 3 times. I responded, but I'm
And
also
every
about
single
what
time you
truly
repeat
matters
the
in this
slur.
election.
That is exactly
no
my
slur.
point. You simply can't say that it's wrong.
George, so then what you're saying, and I want to get off this topic because it's not the only thing that's going on. But George, now you're saying that AP is the one that slurred Kamala Harris, because those are the facts. You can go to the internet and look at the clips, George, if you want to, or we can talk about this now. I prefer to talk about the future of our country, because the American people are struggling. The American people do need serious policy decisions to be made, and they need serious leadership on the world stage. Kamala Harris has not proven that she can do that. Donald J. Trump has proven that he can do that.
AP did not say that Kamala Harris is not black. She is biracial. She is Indian. She is black. You continue to repeat the fact that you continue to repeat the slur. I don't understand why you and the president do it, but it's clear you're not going to say that it's wrong. And you've now established that for our audience. Trump also said at the convention that he would
George,
pardon
all I'm saying
January
is
6
warning
rioters.
Everybody look for themselves. Let's move on.
I've already said that. Go
Look on
ahead.
the internet, everybody. Let's move on. There we go.
You go on and repeat the slurs again. Trump also said at the
was no
convention
slur.
he would pardon January 6 rioters who assaulted police officers. Do you support?
You heard what he said, right? Her mother was Indian and her father was Jamaican. Like, Jamaican is a race. Jamaican is a place. You're from, if you're Jamaican, you're from Jamaica, but you're not race Jamaican. Okay? And I don't know, I'm kind of late to the game, and this probably won't be released. But let's look for that AP magazine, or what is it, AP article on Kamala. Keeps calling it a slur. Did they take it down? Because you know how all of a sudden everybody rewrites history. They rewrite history. Oh, see, they're changing it. Look at this, Cole. Here is the article. Business Insider, November 2016. Not that we need to, not that we need to see it, but since I'm here, that's one article. Look at the date. November 16, 2016. First, they're making it disappear as we speak. First Indian American senator, California's. Oh my goodness. But and this is why no one listens to the mainstream media anymore. Okay? This is why we don't listen to you anymore. You can't be trusted. You can't be trusted. Now they're saying it's false claims. Let's see what AP said. Are they gonna clean up the article? Are we going to clean? Oh, real news. When was this? Not this week. The Not Real News focused on false news that spread about Senator Kamala Harris after the presumptive Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden announced Tuesday she would be his running mate. Here are the facts. Harris is not eligible to serve as president because her parents were immigrants. If Biden is unable to serve a full term as president, Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi would be next in line. She was born an American. I don't think anybody doubts she was born an American. I don't know. Harris called Biden, blah, blah, blah. Harris identified herself as Indian American when she was sworn into Congress. She never said black. She said Indian. And she never corrected people who said she was Indian. You saw that article. Now they're saying, oh, she always said she was Indian and black. She always said that. She always identified. She didn't. She didn't. And it doesn't matter. That's the problem. But it shows how disingenuous she really is. Because she would let a lie or what do you call it? A misnomer pass. You know what I'm saying? For her benefit. Because now she's saying, oh, she's the first black. She's the first black. She's the first black American to ever run for president, which again is a non-truth. She's not black. She's not the first black. It doesn't, again, not true. I don't really care. But she's not the first woman to ever run for president. She just wasn't. That's the misnomer. She wasn't. But that was so funny to me. That was hilarious. He got up there and said she was black and Jamaican, as if Jamaican was a race. The racism inside is killing me. I'm telling you. The racism inside is killing me. They just try not to be racist, and it just comes out anyways.
Father, it does not list national origin. It does not list religion. It does not list anything about that, but where it says race, they put national origin in Jamaica by mistake. Now, if you've ever been to Jamaica and you get over to St. Elizabeth Parish, you see all the high, bright, and white that live in Jamaica. So I've got a good friend retired from law enforcement. He has a white wife, blonde-haired, blue eyes, but she was born in Jamaica. Her parents were born in Jamaica. One's blonde and blue-eyed, the other one's red-haired and gray-eyed. And they happen to be related to the King of England because they are aristocrats in England, but they were born in Jamaica. So if you go over there, you see people from Hong Kong, Singapore, New Zealand, Australia, Kenya, South Africa, you name it. It's part of the British Commonwealth, and nobody needed a passport, and you could just go in and out. So it's not unusual. You're not black just because you were from Jamaica, and you have a whole lot of white people that never left, and their ancestors owned a lot of slaves. The Maroons went up into the hill country and got themselves free back in the 1840s, but Other than that, it is what it is in Jamaica. So just because you're from that country does not mean you are of the black race. So the problem is why don't you go get your daddy to give you an affidavit that you have a black ancestor? And since the only possible claim you have is through your great-grandmother, who he says was a Hindu house servant that just happens to be swarthy, where'd you get your blackness from? See, you're faking it again. And I say this after 50 years of experience. The worst human beings you will ever find are career prosecutors. Something slimy about them. They are so turned off by humanity and everything else. They don't care. They're trying to win the game. It is just play to them. They don't give a damn about the people they represent. They just want to win. So they lie, cheat, steal to win the game. And that brings up the other thing, where the Supreme Court of California ordered her to produce the evidence that was exculpating to somebody sitting up on death row that she had hidden. They did that over and over and over again with her hiding this evidence. Now, there are exceptions to this rule with career prosecutors, but if you ever want to sleazy somebody, find yourself a career prosecutor who's never done anything else but that until they have moved up. Now, there have been people like Thomas Dewey, who was a career prosecutor. He got Lucky Luciano, the gangster that set up the mob as a syndicate, a business. He got him and became governor of New York and then an unsuccessful candidate for president twice. You have people like that, and you got Kamala, who was a career prosecutor, and that's essentially all she's done outside of moving directly over into politics. They tend to be crooks. They're not good people. It's like I used to, on the bench, it's like, excuse me, can you approach both of you? Do you have any character? Do you realize what you just did? Well, I mean, no, we can't have that. That is not going to be allowed up in here. You do it again, and the court's going to see to it that you get a 10-day paid vacation courtesy of the sheriff. No. See, and that's what I'm looking at. She wants to be chief administrative officer, but she's never been the boss over anything. She was nominally with the Attorney General's office, but you've got all of these egos with all of these people with doctorate of laws who've taken the bar exam, and every one of them in there could run against you in an election and be your boss, and is as qualified technically as you are to run the place. So she's never been the boss in charge of something where she dictated, because what she did in San Francisco and when she got over California is she essentially had somebody else doing it, and she was just a political figurehead. So when you come into this situation here, Putin, Russia, Ukraine, those are serious things. They have a lot of nukes. You've got Xi Jinping, and China's got one hell of a huge army, air force, nukes, computer systems, and so on. What is your experience in international diplomacy? You got made the representative of the country to handle the foreign affairs. You failed so badly they yanked you out when you were actually the boss in charge. The borders are, you just complete abject failure to that. Your only appearance down there was to sit in a chair in the desert while they interviewed you, trying to be cute, flashing your pearls, and you didn't do your job. So you're talking now about you want to legitimize 20 million aliens who've come in here and see that they get fast-tracked so they can vote and become part of the whole process. What are you doing? Whose jobs are you taking away? What about the people that actually lined up to go through citizens? So I take the courses. See, nobody's checking They've got an outbreak of hepatitis. They got an outbreak of measles. HIV is ramped up. They've got all kinds of things. They've got problems with strains of tuberculosis that have no cure. So people are, before they come down with it, you have to put them on prophylactics for the rest of their life so they don't get a fatal illness that nobody can cure. So nobody is running the medical test. Nobody is checking to see what penitentiary they got out of. And something that is pretty real is a movie. You remember Al Pacino in Scarface? They dumped all their penitentiaries and they're over here. You got all of these Latino gangs that have now infiltrated. You've got Ukraine, you've got Gaza, you've got people that hate the fact that they don't have technology to shoot down a B-1B bomber. So what do? They just walk across the damn border. Nobody's checking them. Somebody is giving them free transportation without even vetting their luggage. And in the luggage, they have military-grade explosives, which over the last several years, I'm sure they put in various building structures, hospitals, subways, and everything else. And on command, they flip the switch, and 911 looks like a Boy Scout meeting. So what are you going to do about these things? Nobody's checking. You have a situation right now that has to be taken into context. Just about every major seaport is using these container removal cranes, these giant gantry cranes. They're made in the People's Republic of China. Nobody checked them, and now they went back and did, and there seem to be some things built into them that they can't remove. Don't know what the function is, but they appear to be communication devices. What the hell are those?
So the United States shares a very important relationship, which is an alliance with the Republic of North Korea. And it is an alliance that is strong and enduring.
We share an alliance with North Korea. Did you know? Did you know? Did you know? We share an alliance with North Korea. North Korea. We share an alliance with you, girl. We love you, girl. We share an alliance with North Korea. And we're going to trust this woman. This woman to be president of the United States of America. Anyways, those are the things I was looking around at. Those are the things I was paying attention to. And the memory of that North Korea, that's our alliance. This is why, as a feminist, I cannot, in good conscience, vote for Kamala Harris as president. Anyways, that's all I got for today. Thank you for listening. Sorry for all the bumps and whistles, but you know how it goes when it goes. Like, share, subscribe. Tell me what you think in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.